the Monday, March 19th meeting of the Monona City Council. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Alder Moore.
Here.
Alder Crewer.
Here.
Alder Holmquist.
Here.
Alder Spate.
Here.
Alder Wood.
Here.
Mayor O'Connor.
Here.
Alder Kitzler is excused.
Okay, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of the March 5th meeting?
So moved. Second.
Any questions, additions? All in favor of approving the minutes, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. We have two appearances tonight. First will be Matt Marks, speaking about the Wildhaven Park project. Matt, would you like to come up to the... I think we try to allow about 3 minutes for appearances.
Matt Marks, 5205 Mesa Road. I'm here again to urge the council here tonight to reject all of the bids related to the Wildhaven Park project as it stands right now. I previously objected to construction of a deck in Wildhaven Park. I really have no objection to the shoreline improvements, and I understand ADA requirements and ADA access, that sort of thing. But the deck is a detriment to the park and serves no practical purpose. But tonight, I also have serious concerns regarding procedure in this case. According to meeting minutes, I've got copies of them right here, there was a committee discussion of a plan for Wildhaven Park on October 6, 2015, 2 years ago. Committee discussions, that plan had no deck in it, and engineers estimated the cost to be about $70,000. Between October 15th and November 14th, October 6th of 2015 and November 14th of 2017, 2 years, like I said, I found no evidence in meeting minutes that documented committee discussion or input from neighborhood residents on the project. Other parks like Schluter and Bridge Road and Lattice and Arrowhead, they all had input from local residents, local neighbors, and comments from, there's a lot of discussion on what went into those parks. And you may remember over the last couple of years ago when we talked forever and ever and ever on getting dogs to be able to be on leash in a park. Wildhaven has had no such input. A number of people that I've talked to were surprised to hear that there was going to be a deck in that park, and they said, really? Like a deck? The current plan featuring the deck first appeared, as I've been able to find here in the minutes, in the November 17th, 2017 Park Board meeting. Now, the cost is way over $100,000, obviously, but and despite my objections at that meeting, the committee members, in my viewpoint from what I saw, essentially said, well, no, everything's a done deal. We're just going to make some minor improvements to this, or changes to this plan, and go forward to this thing. And again, and there wasn't a meeting until January, and the park board then, I guess, approved the final plans and sent it out for bid. A question I have to ask is, where did all this detail, including the deck, come from? Certainly not in the committee meeting minutes, and certainly not from any documented public input on the thing. The only previous committee meeting agenda on it and discussion of it was on October 6th, 2015, and that plan didn't include a deck. There's been no documented discussion of plans for Wild Haven between October of 15 and November of 17, based on what I've been able to find in the meeting minutes here. I guess my opinion on this is that the committee must have acted on its own, and I don't know, maybe off the record, without consideration of neighbors and other park users of their viewpoints. How can we continue to spend money on projects like Wild Haven Park that have had virtually no public input? Please reject the bids for the Wild Haven Park project at this time. And I certainly would welcome any discussion on the project or from anyone here.
Thank you. Next is Jeff Hins, also speaking in favor of the Wild Haven Park project. If anyone else is here to speak about the Wild Haven Park project or would like to register for or against, there's a slip over there you could fill out on the table.
Good evening. Live at 5100 Toniawatha Trail. Our house is on the corner of Toniawatha Trail and Votes. We're directly across from Arrowhead Park, and we have a deck. We love it. It's great to be able to sit up on the deck, look out across Arrowhead Park, watch activities taking place on Toniawatha Trail, watching people biking by, neighbors walking their dogs, people jogging by. It adds really to the quality of life that we have for living in Monona. It's one of those added bonuses that we have in our house that we certainly enjoy and we use year-round. If we had more money, we would live on the lake. The location of the Wild Haven Park observation deck is one with a spectacular view. It overlooks the lake. You have beautiful sunsets. You have the super moon that has set a number of times over the city landscape. And so ideally, if we had more money, that's where we'd like to live. We'd like to live on the lake. We'd love to have a deck. We'd love to have a pier so that we could better access the waters. And so with that in mind, I was kind of wondering how many people live on the lake. And so I asked Brad Brunn of the city if he had some information regarding the number of people that live on the lake. And what he provided is he said that there are 381 single-family properties that have shorelines on the lake or river. He said there are 2,361 single-family residential parcels. It's safe to assume that 95% of those parcels will have a home or building on the parcel, which make the number of homes to be approximately 2,250 buildings. So with my math, I came up with 83% of us don't live on the lake. We don't have access to some of those beautiful views. And I would suspect that, people in this room, the majority of us don't live on the lake. And so the Wild Haven Park project is a project that will certainly provide kind of us, the 83% of those that don't live on the lake, the opportunity to have a deck, a pier, a accessible walkway going to those amenities. And to me, it just enhances the park. It's a urban park. It's a city park. And when you look at 83% of the people will have an opportunity to benefit from some of those amenities, I think that's certainly a sizable number. And it's kind of one of those things with spring training taking place right now in the movie Field of Dreams. They say if you build it, they will come. And I think that's what Wild Haven Park will provide. It's going to provide a great place for people to be able to enjoy sunsets, to be able to watch activities out on the lake. The deck is cantilevered, and I think one of the reasons that we had talked about it in the park board about having it not ending at the shoreline but having it cantilevered out is that it gives a much better view of the lake. Currently, at Wildhaven Park, there's a bench. And when you look to the north, what you're looking into are arborvitae trees that were planted by the neighbor on the north side on their property line. But those trees are going to grow, and they're going to keep blocking the view on the north side. So cantilevering the deck out over the water is going to provide a much better view on the north as well as on the south. The view that you have looking straight out is spectacular, and so it certainly is the view that you have if you're sitting at the park bench, or hopefully with the passage of this budget for Wildhaven, that it will be that people will be able to sit on the deck and enjoy it. So I encourage the council to vote in favor of having the funding available for Wildhaven Park. I see it as a huge enhancement for 83% of the people in Monona who don't live on the lake, who don't have access to a deck on the lake or a pier. And I guess kind of as a side note, the pier that is slated for Wildhaven Park would be a pier that would be kind of repurposed from Winnequa or Toniawatha Trail. So it's not a new pier that'd be going in. And so please pass the budget for the boat launches also, so that those piers become available for Wildhaven. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? There is no public hearing. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Consent agenda is approved. Item G1, under unfinished business, consideration of Resolution 18-3-2249, approval to contract with MSA Professional Services Incorporated for municipal engineering services, put forth by the Public Works Committee. Is there a motion to approve this?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Stefani?
Thank you, Mayor. This item appears on the agenda tonight for the second reading. Coming out of the first reading, there was a request by Alder Holmquist to add another whereas to the resolution, which we did. City Council, per Resolution 11-12-1821, authorized the selection of 3 firms to provide engineering consulting services for various city projects as needed. This was passed back in 2012, authorizing the Public Works Department and city to contract with 3 firms. So that was the only addition to the resolution. Other than that, there are no additional changes to this request.
Any questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Item G1B, consideration of Resolution 18-3-2245, approving a bid for the Wildhaven Park Improvements Project, put forth by the Parks and Recreation Board. Is there a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
Second.
Mr. Anderson?
I don't have anything significant to report since first reading on this, other than we are hoping to start construction the week of April 2nd. So coming up pretty quick. All of our capital projects are reviewed during our 5-year CIP plan. This year was at the June and the July meetings of when all proposals for projects are discussed.
So it was in the minutes. There should have been in the minutes of those
It's
meetings.
in the packet, and then we approve or recommend approval of all of the projects as a whole, not each individual project.
And this was also discussed when the city discussed the capital improvements plan.
Correct.
When the council discussed it. Is that
Correct.
correct?
Correct.
Any questions for Jake? Doug?
Not really a question, just a comment. I was trying to find some of the minutes, and I did find that it was discussed, as you mentioned, during the capital budget process, and specifically, I believe, at the November 2017 meeting where the committee approved the plans for the project. One of the specific things that was called out was to have the deck cantilevered out as far as possible over the water. So I think this did go through the
Correct.
normal process, if not maybe even a little bit more so than most capital projects. It went through the committee process, both as part of the budget and separately.
Correct.
Could you just talk about the deck itself, whether, if the park is going to be ADA accessible, shouldn't the deck, if we're going to have a deck, well, if we don't have a deck of some type or some type of surface, at least that viewing opportunity would not be ADA accessible, correct?
The viewing opportunity that is off of the stairs going down, the slope would not be. I think an alternative would have been some sort of a viewing platform, concrete pad that would surround the existing bench that's there now.
Right.
The deck gets us a little closer out over the water, and it was I think, unanimous recommendation of the Park and Recreation Board to be able to have that access out over the water at what we would consider the best view of the Madison skyline at one of our parks that we have.
Right, okay. Yeah, I just, as further comment on this, I used to live on Thunderbird Lane, and this was one of the parks that I frequently walked down to very often, especially in the evening, to watch the sunset over the skyline. It's unfortunate we don't have more waterfront parks in Monona, and if I think these enhancements will make this an even better park for those viewing opportunities. If we ever get a chance to add more lakefront park, I think is something we should definitely explore. But right now, we don't have it. So I'm strongly in favor of this project.
I wanted to make a few comments as well because I was chair of the Parks Board for, I think, 4 years running when we were looking at this particular park for a couple of those years. And my recollection, Jake, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, is that back probably in 2015, we were thinking about how do we improve this park. And I think our first plan was to have a terraced approach of hardscape. And we did some preliminary engineering and bidding on that, and it was prohibitively expensive, and more expensive than what our current plan is. And so we went back to the drawing board and said, how can we achieve these spectacular views, which are uniquely spectacular at this park, in a way that is more cost effective? And that's how the Parks Board arrived at the current plan. Would that be?
I think you might be thinking of Stonebridge for the original estimate to do just the shoreline restoration was around 80,000. That didn't make the 2016 capital budget cut at that point, and so it got pushed back into the 2018 project that was going to be designed and build for 2018. We had a capital budget amendment to do the design in 2017 when we had some excess funding. So it is a little bit more expensive than what the original concept was, but I think after our discussions during the capital budget process revolved around the improvements at Alumni Park on the Madison campus and how that kind of gave this amazing balcony type of feel to it, and we thought that this park at Wild Haven could entertain that same type of feeling in it with a deck.
Anyone else? What are the dimensions of the deck?
About 15 by 25, so 25 wide, 15 deep.
Anyone else? Alder Moore?
Yeah, I would just like to say that as a member of the Park and Rec committee, that fully supportive of this project. Obviously, as Jake indicated, it was a unanimous decision. And I mentioned at the last council meeting, the value of the deck in terms of the view for those people, especially as it relates to accessibility. View for everyone, obviously improving. I would also say that as someone who is fortunate enough to live on the lake next to Schluter Park, that there's no question that, when you live next to a park, things change when the park changes. But on balance, I can hear more people in the park. I see more people in the park. I'm not sure if the wood ducks that used to nest there will come back this year because there's no longer a lot of scrub for them to hide out in. But obviously, I think, the work that was done on Schluter has been extraordinary and for the residents of the city, and I think that's really important for us to keep in mind that the parks are really for everyone, and the more access that we can provide, I think the better.
Anyone else? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Should that have been a roll call?
Nope. Yeah, I think we're good.
Okay. Let's see, item G1C, consideration of resolution 18-3-2246, approving a bid for boat launch improvements at Winnequa Trail and Toniawatha Trail, also put forth by the Park and Recreation Board. Is there a motion to approve?
I'll move approval.
Is there a
Second.
second? Mr. Anderson.
Sure, thank you. At our March 13th Park and Recreation Board meeting, this item was discussed with the funding shortage. There was several different options that were given. The Park and Rec Board talked about this still being a valuable project that they would like to see done, and there was consensus that the fees above and beyond what are budgeted into the general fund would be a wise option to recommend to this body to use a significant percentage of fees each year to pay back what our necessary shortfall is. So,
Could you explain a little bit about the fees?
sure. So all the daily sales that we have at our 3 launches, all the annual passes that are good at City of Monona, City of Madison, and Dane County boat launches that are purchased in the City of Monona go into the maintenance and repair of our boat launches. So we keep all that money. So it's important that if you're buying an annual pass, that you buy it from one of our city locations or our partners, one being the Cottage Grove Ace Hardware Store and West Marine off of Broadway. And so each year we budget around $21,000 that goes into the general fund to help offset maintenance-related costs for maintaining the 3 boat launches. Anything above and beyond that goes into a trust agency account that we've used in the past to replace piers. I believe some of the money was used for the engineering for this particular project that you have before us. So we're generating between $30,000 and $40,000 in annual revenue because of our boat launches. And that has increased since the addition of Lottis Park, since the remodel of Lottis in 2015. So we have 2 really good years of data on what we can expect to bring in at Lottis. I have no problem saying that that's going to be a full park for years to come, and it's a very desirable place to launch a boat. Improvements in our other 2 launches at Winnequa Trail and Toniawatha Trail, by reason, should increase the revenue that we collect on daily sales from those 2 launches as well, if they're repaired and improved.
So how are you planning on covering the shortfall?
So I think the park board made, the recommendation from the Parks Board is that we use general fund revenue or capital fund expenditure revenue, and it's paid back over the course of the 10 years. So
From this fee?
from the fees, from the excess fees that's not transferred over to our general operating fund. So we would anticipate if we're at $10,000 to $15,000 a year, it should be between 7 and 8, 6 to 8 years that we should be able to pay it back. Mark would like us to
Mark?
pay back interest as well.
Did you have anything to add, Mark, about this?
Just could I you're talking about that's after the other adjustments, delaying the Winnequa Park, or are you talking about?
Correct, yeah, so
Okay.
the original packet had, oh, no, thanks, Mark. All right, so we have $16,000 in our fund balance right now that would be used for these projects. We would save $40,000 by not doing $50,000 worth of engineering for Winnequa Park. So as that project would have been a combination of adding on to the dredging project that has gotten pushed back a little bit. So for Winnequa, we would just be doing conceptual design of what future improvements would look like, not actually any engineering, since we're not doing construction in 2019. And then fund balance is 2017 capital projects of unused projects or projects that came in under budget. That's what is left over from 2017 capital projects. So we have 80,000 roughly that we would need to make up the difference. And that can either be done by utilizing capital budget, borrowing, which is slated for approval tonight, or taking from the general fund and then being paid. Either way, we would pay it back through those excess funds, whether it's taken out of the general fund or whether it's borrowed for.
Yeah, I
Mark?
would just repeat what he just said. One thing is, we did borrow an extra 100,000 in the capital borrowing that's gonna come up tonight. So we have 2.8 instead of 2.7 we borrowed. But if we don't do that and we just take the money out of the fund balance, the 100,000 we borrowed extra would be used to the TIF 9 project that's coming up in the borrowing in August. So if you don't want to use the borrowing, just use the fund balance on 100,000 would reduce the future borrowing in TIF, which is in August.
Alderwood?
You're talking about the capital fund balance from last year, not the general fund balance.
We're talking about the general fund balance, taking it
Okay.
out of there, because we don't have it. Basically used up everything in
Okay.
capital.
Right, okay.
So I would recommend, he said interest, I would say you want to look into charging the interest, because we would lose about 2% of interest is what we're getting on that money, so something to think about.
What would that leave us in the general fund balance then?
It'd still leave us over the 20% percentage. I think we'll be still around 23-24%.
Alder Holmquist?
With the anticipated operating challenges for the upcoming year, is there in your best read at this point, will we be asked to utilize some of that fund balance to cover operating costs? And would you recommend us add into the capital and then charging the interest, which is a wash compared to using up something that we might need to use?
I don't think we'll be using that because we are closing TIF 2, so there is going to be a larger portion coming onto the tax, onto the levy, so we'll have an increase in the levy limit that we shouldn't, I don't think we'll go over. I mean, we could, but should go over the levy limit amount. Plus, eventually, we are closing TIF 2 at the same time, and we will get a huge portion coming into our fund balance, about $350,000 when we close TIF 2. And the TIF 2 is a little confusing. We're technically closing TIF 2 this year. So the fund balance number is adjusted. I mean, not the fund balance, the levy limit number is adjusted. But TIF 2 is officially closed for accounting purposes and next year, so we'll get the fund balance money in 2019 because we have to leave it open for New Monona. So it's kind of confusing a little bit. So
we won't get any money from that this year?
we won't get the fund balance money this year. So right now we have excess money in TIF 2 that we can't spend on anything. So we
Right.
get, I can't remember, we'll get about $350,000 from that. So that will be closing. We'll get a check we write to ourselves in 2019. We'll get that.
Right, and the levy limit will go up, but that's also 2019.
That'll be for next year, yep. Our next,
So we won't get any money from it this year.
we won't get any money in 18. We'll get it
Right.
in 19.
Alder Moore?
I just wanted to actually clarify two things that Jake said that came out of committee. One is the Park and Rec Board felt quite strongly that we should pay the loan, if you will, back as quickly as possible. So it would be not to exceed 10 years, but our goal would be to pay it back much sooner, depending on what the revenues are that are generated from the launches. And the second thing is that the committee also talked about doing what we can to increase the permits that are sold, including putting new PSAs on WVMO and other avenues that we have to let people know that they're available, and so that hopefully we would be generating more funds overall as well from those fees to be able to pay it back that much sooner.
Alder Kur?
I understand we're doing these both at the same time. Is there any concern about closing 2 riverboat launches at the same time in terms of lost revenue?
They would be doing one first and keeping the other one open. There may be some overlap between the, finishing of one where they are both closed at the same time. The daily revenue from both of those historically over the last 5 years is not anywhere near what we're collecting at Lotus, so it wouldn't really be that big of a blip. I would say, 80% of our revenue is based on annual passes. So it's really collecting those annual passes is the important part.
And then is there a way that we could start collecting data on how many people use the launch daily?
Yeah, so with our system now, we can do point of sale calc. So we started like halfway through last year, so I don't have good data from last year for each launch. Before, it was just you collect the slips and either I take the cash to the bank because it sometimes is a little gross to handle, and the office staff appreciates if I handle wet dollar bills. But now we can put them in a baggie and label them where they came, what launch they're from, and we'll have that data moving forward.
Okay, great.
Lotus is easy. It's all digital and electronic, so we can see that. But moving forward, we'll have that ability.
Thanks.
Anyone else? Okay, all in favor, say aye. Alder Wood?
Because right now it doesn't require the repayment out of the boat launch. I don't believe. So I wanted to add a requirement.
Okay.
I would move to amend to require repayment from the boat launch fees with 2% interest of any monies used from the general fund balance for this project.
Who made that original
I think I know.
motion? You accept the
Alder Speed.
amendment?
Could you repeat the amendment, please?
To require repayment from the boat launch fees with 2% interest of any monies used from the general fund balance for this project.
I accept that amendment.
Okay, so
Wait, still writing. All right, thank you.
so we need to vote on the
Amendment?
amendment. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, is there any further discussion on this item? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes, thank you. Oh, item G1D, consideration of resolution 18-3-2247, approving a bid for the Ahuska Park Tennis Courts Improvement Project, also put forth by the Park and Recreation Board. Is there a motion to approve?
I move to approve.
I'll se-
I'm sorry.
I'll second.
Somebody seconded. Jake?
I don't have anything further to add from our last meeting other than the low apparent bidder is a contractor that we worked with before. The courts would close after the season of the Monona Grove High School tennis team that plays there, and we would have them reopen before the start of the fall high school tennis season. So it's kind of a June 1 to August 1 type of project. would be replacing the 5 westerly courts, and then adding all new color and lines to all 8 courts.
Any questions? Alder Holmquist?
Did we determine where the excess funds? It looks like there's 23.
Yeah, I think my understanding is we're gonna do it all at one, that 80,000 would come out of just of the boat launch money. Cause we'd have, I had it up here, do you guys have that breakout from the schedule from?
From last meeting.
Yeah.
So that included all,
Yeah.
the sum of the projects, whatever the
That was the
difference
balance.
was.
The 80
balances.
covered everything, and we're
Yeah.
gonna charge it all to the boat launch?
Yeah, because we could say the,
Sure.
well, that's 155,000, the majority of it is.
Yeah, made
So,
sense.
And we are using 2017 capital excess to help cover some of the overages on the other projects.
Anything else? Doug?
Do we need to do a separate budget amendment or include a budget amendment in this motion?
Do we need another motion?
Do we need a budget amendment for these?
It says here budget amendment needed.
I'd say
In the
we
fiscal
could do a
note.
budget amendment for all 3 of them, the 3 ones that need it, and but we know the funding's gonna come from the boat launch, so if we could do a budget amendment for all of them, that'd be great.
At the next meeting? I mean, or do it tonight?
Do it tonight, if that's,
So are we gonna do each of these individually? Because we just did a budget amendment for the boat launch, right?
Mhm.
yeah, we still need a budget amendment technically to go over for the other ones too, so.
Okay. So do you want to do them each individually?
I can do it all as one, I mean, whatever's easiest to do, I don't know.
We have 2 left to do, right?
I kind of think we have to do them individually
Yeah.
because.
Yeah.
We've
We've already done one.
right, and, so, then I'll move to, so this, wait a minute, before I start making a motion. So this would also come out of the boat launch fees.
Right, this would come out of the, I don't know how we want to, we'd come out of the fund balance number. I guess we could say the boat launch is going to cover the boat launch fees, and then
Okay,
the excess would coming out from that 50,000 we were using for fund balance, and the other $40,000 that wouldn't qualify.
right. Well, we can just amend the budget. I don't know that we have to specify the,
Right. 3 projects for that.
whatever's left, apply that to both.
Yeah, that's what I would do.
I didn't hear that.
We just said apply the fund balances for the tennis court first, and then to the community center, and then with the excess is then covered by the Winnequa Park Lagoon or phase 1 engineering, and then whatever's left over would be covered by the boat launch.
How much
Okay.
what is the excess?
50,000 for fund balance and 40,000 for what's it?
For the
Engineering.
engineering project, yeah.
Those, just the fund balance engineering cover the 2, Huska Park and the community center.
Do you want to make a motion, Doug, or
I have a question first.
Alder Holmquist?
Can we just approve to go over and not identify the source and then come back next meeting with a sheet that just indicates where the funds are coming from associated with each passage? That way it's clear in the minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can do that.
So even though, you mean including the one that we already approved?
Yeah, we can clean
Just
that
for
up next time, but we could just go
information.
forward for the rest of just approving the overage. The next meeting, Mark could bring that spreadsheet and we could just pass that and reference each item. So that way it's clear in the minutes that, because it's a little bit from here and a little bit from there. And
Right,
Right.
I agree. This,
Yeah.
we should have done a better job of having all this information before this meeting, how we're going to cover all this, I think, in a informative way. So are you saying to pass it the way it is now, and then we'll vote on
I'll move that we amend this to exceed the amount originally requested and increase it by 23,232 with no funding source identified.
Okay, and who made that original motion?
Oh, anybody can second that, his amendment, so.
I'll second Brian's amendment.
All right, all in favor of approving Brian's amendment, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Could you repeat the dollar amount on that, please?
Yep.
23,000.
23,233.
Okay, now we're back to the original motion. Does anyone else have anything to add? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Next item, G1E, consideration of resolution 18-3-2248, approving a bid for the community center / pool chemical storage project put forth by the Park and Recreation Board. And we're also going to probably have to amend this, so is there a motion?
Move approval.
Second.
Mr. Anderson?
As you recall from last meeting, this would be a project to replace our existing chemical storage unit that's housed outside of our pool mechanical room near the water slide. There's a retaining wall that's next to it that's failing. That would be removed, and we would add an accessible path and remove a set of stairs that is currently on the northeast corner of the community center. That path would wind down around the northeast side of the building and connect to the asphalt walking path that goes around the tennis courts and the skate park. So we would have a nice transition area if you're walking from the walking path by Winnequa School at the end of Greenway, and you can come up around the community center, ride your bike, and not have to go out into the parking lot. So we do have a lot of people that come that way to use the pool, or they park in the lower level of the Winnequa School lot. And then you kind of have to decide, are you going to go around the tennis courts, or are you going to go around the front of the community center to get to the front of the pool? And this keeps people on a safe path on both those accounts. It also replaces an aging chemical storage unit, takes care of some retaining wall issues and grading issues that we have on that corner of the property. And that project will start ASAP, so it can be done before the all-city swim meet. Ideally, it's done before the start of the pool season, by June 2nd.
Okay, and this has a shortage of 10,453.
Correct.
Is that correct? All right, any discussion? Anyone want to make a
Make the same
amendment?
amendment as the prior amendment, with the dollar value being $10,453.
I'll second that.
Okay. All in favor of Brian's amendment, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Back to the original motion. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
And then next meeting, we will have an amendment to take care of these items. New business, item 2A, consideration of application for 2017-2018 patio permit for La Rosita Mexican Buffet LLC, doing business as La Rosita Mexican Buffet at 6001 Monona Drive, Monona, Wisconsin, 53716. This is started for immediate approval.
I move to suspend the rules and take this out of order.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Is there a motion to approve?
I will move approval, but with the requirement that video surveillance be installed and be installed and working prior to the alcohol being served on the patio.
So are you proposing an amendment to the,
My main motion is, yeah, it's different from, we can do it either way. Well, I'll move approval, and then I can make that amendment if you'd rather prefer that. Okay.
Fine. I'll second your clean approval.
Okay, then I'll move to amend that to require video surveillance system approved by the Monona Police Department be installed prior to alcohol being served on the patio.
I'll second that.
Okay, so do we have to vote on both of those items?
Yeah.
Okay, so all in favor of the first motion, say aye. Alder Holmquist.
Voting on the amendment first.
Right.
Yeah.
So the question was, when I read this, the reason it wasn't going to the plan commission is because the prior occupant had a patio permit?
That's what it states, yeah. My understanding was it didn't need to go to Plan Commission.
No, it did not need to go to Plan Commission because that structure was already part of that building and approved by the Plan Commission.
Okay. I'm just trying to help understand the difference between if it's the physical structure. So other businesses, when they added a patio, is it because they added, well, the only reason they added railings was because we told them they had to.
Not all of them, some chose to.
Okay.
If the Plan Commission determines that it's required, then it would be a requirement of that place. If the License Review Committee decided it should be required, would be, so it's kind of up to the two committees to decide.
Okay. And did the prior occupant, or do all our other patios have required video surveillance?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, all in favor of we're approving the amended motion, is that right? Say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Nah. Motion passes, and now we're approving Doug's amended.
Motion
Yeah.
as amended.
Motion as amended. Are there any further questions or discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. All right. Item 2B, consideration of Resolution 18-3-2252, authorizing the issuance and sale of 2.8 million general obligation promissory notes, Series 2018A, put forth by the Finance Director. This is also started for immediate approval.
So,
Is there a motion?
I'll move to suspend the rules and take this out of order.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I'll move approval.
I'll second.
Okay.
So
Mark?
last meeting, we had an authorization for Jeff Belanger, Chuck Nurley, to start negotiating with our bonds. This is to borrow for 2018 capital projects. As we kind of mentioned before, we did add in an extra 100,000 in there. It would be 2.7, but we added an extra 100,000 to make it 2.8. And again, since we're not going to be using that now, we'll just offset our future capital borrowing in August. So now we got the rates, and this is Jim Miller.
Good evening, I'm Jim Miller, a partner with Jeff at Hutchinson, Shockey, Early and Company. As Mark alluded to, this is the 2.8, obviously, for the borrowing for the 2018 CIP. Since the last meeting, obviously, we have marketed the debt. Actually, late last week, the ultimate interest rates that were achieved with marketing of the bonds came in at an effective all-inclusive interest cost of 2.99%. So we were pretty happy with that. Rates have moved up a little bit. Certainly, you're historically borrowing every year. These rates are a little bit higher than you've seen in the past, but a lot of that's reflective of the economy improving, the Fed tightening, and tax reform. So we're real happy with how the interest rates turned out. Would that answer any questions you might have?
Any questions? Alder Wood?
Could you just explain a little bit, like you did at Finance, about the how the changes in the tax code have changed the environment for
Well, the real change in the tax code is the effective rates for corporations has been drastically reduced. Rates for individuals have been reduced. And so the effective rate is always compared on tax exempt is compared to taxable rates. As you lower marginal tax rates, it tends to push tax exempt rates up a little higher as a percentage of taxable rates. So all three factors have affected municipals in that regard.
Good.
Any questions? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
I'm sorry,
Aye.
Roll
Mayor,
call.
we'll need a roll call.
Oh, I'm sorry. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Alder Wood,
Aye.
Alder Moore,
Aye.
Alder Cooler,
Aye.
Alder Holmquist.
Aye.
Alder Spate.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, item 2C, consideration of resolution 18-3-2253, a resolution to allow beer sales by Parks and Recreation staff during special events in city parks, put forth by the Parks and Recreation Board. This is also starred for immediate approval.
Move that we suspend the rules and take this item out of order.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Is there a motion to approve?
Move approval.
I'll
Second.
Jake?
Thanks. So last year was the first year that we received approval from this board to sell beer in city parks during certain city events and waived the requirement to have fencing. Overall, it went well. We had 5 events that we were selling beer at, and so we would like to expand that program for 2018. So along with the 4 concerts in the park, one of those being National Night Out, so it's a little bit bigger event, and that 4 in our food cart cinema, which is a end of summer popular event that we have in our parks. We are adding a movie night at Bridge Road Park this year on Memorial Day weekend, Friday before. We'd like to do a traveling beer garden at Schluter Park. So this would be a new event, 2 nights, Friday, Saturday night, with light music and active games. And this may lead into, down the road in the future, kind of a similar concept at other parks in Monona. And then the next new event would be the Friday night of Fall Festival. We would do a movie night as well. And so these we would like to do beer sales at. This extended offering this year would also allow us to seek sponsorships for kind of the whole series. And so what I would call the Milwaukee County Parks model is where you would issue an RFP for a craft brewery or a brewery that could be the sponsor of all these events, and then they would get we would sell their beer and work out a deal with the distributorship. So that's why we're looking to do the extra events, and it seemed to work out well last year, and we had no complaints, and it was a nice addition to the events that we had.
Alderwood?
Will there be food and other activities available at each one of these events?
Correct. Yep, there'll be food carts at all of these events. We will have our recreation staff doing backyard games, as I'd call them, bocce ball and giant Jenga and activities that we would have. I would also note that I did attend the License Review Committee on March 13th, and it was recommended for approval at that meeting, and also the Parks and Recreation Board on March 13th made a recommendation for approval.
And it was approved at Finance and Personnel
Correct.
as well. Any questions, comments? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you.
Motion passes. Thank you. One last item for immediate approval. Item 2D, consideration of resolution 18-3-2244, approval of contract with General Engineering Company for building inspection services put forth by the city administrator. Is there a motion to take this out of order?
I'll move to suspend the rules and take this out of order.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Is there a motion to approve?
I'll move approval.
I'll second.
Okay. April?
Tonight we have Mark Jankowski is here from General Engineering Company. They're a firm that has several clients around Wisconsin, and I'll just give you kind of a brief rundown of the contract as drafted that we've negotiated. The contract rate would be $70 per hour plus mileage at the IRS rate. Currently, we have an in-house building inspector who's a staff person that we share with McFarland, and that is at approximately $45 per hour. We did look at possibly if someone was out there around Dane County area interested in a similar arrangement as we have with the Village of McFarland, but there was nobody that was willing or able to do that at this time. And some of the other contracts were for a revenue sharing agreement rather than a flat rate, which in a year where we have higher building activity, is less to our advantage, and we can look at some spreadsheets here in a little bit. Let's see, finance and personnel, they looked at, again, some service options, and they were recommending approval. The contract does guarantee some minimum office hours, and we can have more hours if we choose to budget for them. Right now, we have our inspector in the office just 4 days a week, and it seems to be working okay. And during those other times, I believe the calls, if somebody wants a call for service, they would contact GEC directly, and they do provide some clerical backup as needed. So I will let Mark do any further informational questions that you have.
Good evening. Thank you for having us here tonight. I'm Mark Jankowski. I manage the inspection department for general engineering. I've been there about 22, 23 years. I'm also with Mike Bortz over there, one of our other inspectors. After talking with April, we thought this would be a good opportunity for us to present our inspection services here tonight. I think one thing we have going for us is we are primarily an engineering firm and design firm. So we have a lot of backup to our inspectors for information, for that type of thing, if we run into complicated projects, and primarily the complicated ones would be commercial projects. So I think we have a pretty good staff to back us up there. I think moving into an hourly contract, I agree with April that it's hard to find people to do this type of work. You notice both Mike and I have gray hair. That's probably the same for all the people in our department. It's getting difficult to find inspectors to do this type of work. I think the contractor you're looking at hourly, I think, is a good fit for the community. We don't tie you into any long-term service contracts. If you don't like us, we shake hands and part ways. But I think we do a pretty good job at what we do. We've been doing it a long time, and I think we have the staff. I've made some adjustments already in lieu of us getting the contract to put more people down here, primarily Mike and myself, to help you. So we think we have enough staff to take care of that. And we also have people that live in the area, and I think if we enter into some type of long-term agreement, we would look at maybe shifting some of our personnel around to get people closer and a little bit more, in proximity to this area. But that's it. I think we do a pretty good job at what we do, and I appreciate the opportunity to present tonight.
I just want to add, for the benefit of the community, that the reason we're looking for a new building inspector is because our current building inspector is going to be going full-time with McFarland.
Okay.
So especially with the riverfront coming up, we really need to get somebody on board here because we're breaking ground there very soon. So.
Okay. Yeah, we appreciate the opportunity to help you out.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Alder Spade.
So if we were to award this contract to your company, do we know what the office hours would be? Or
That's a very good question, and usually we'll work with April to set it up, kind of look at your permit traffic and set up hours that would correspond to that. We're not going to be here when we don't need to be, but certainly we want to be here for your, citizens to come in and get a permit. And I think we just lightly brushed on the fact that maybe 3 days a week might be something that would be beneficial. If someone brings in something the day before, we'd get to it the next day, something like that, so.
would those be full days or partial days? Or?
Whatever the permit traffic allows, we'd be here to get the work done, and if there's nothing going on, we're out of here. And we have similar contracts in Dane County with larger communities with that type of hourly service.
Okay.
April, didn't we talk about possibly like an Monday, Wednesday, Friday, the first hour of the day being in the office so that people know what to expect?
Sure.
And that's currently how it works too, is, Marty's in the office the first hour, and then he'll go out on inspection. So,
Yep.
If there's some reason they need to be called back, usually, when they're finished, then they can call back in the office. So
Okay.
I'm imagining that would be the same.
Sure. Yeah, we're flexible. I guess probably the only maybe a strange problem we run into for all our inspectors is somebody forgets to call in an inspection and needs it done in an hour, and sometimes we have a hard time fitting that in, but we do make our best to make that happen, so.
Alder Wood?
Yeah, so where, right now, what's the plan for where the inspectors would be housed, or they'd be coming from?
Portage right now. Mike and I both live in Portage.
Okay.
And we would look to get maybe someone closer or rearranged right now, but I guess in the short time frame, we just, these are the two guys you're going to get, I guess, so.
Okay. And we'd pay time and mileage for that.
That's correct.
So that's, I mean, that's a concern longer term. Understand, you know, if we need to get somebody on board, and don't expect you to be able, to be able to change things around quickly. But that's, if we were to establish a long-term relationship, that really wouldn't work for me, at least, because I think it would add about, would we figure $40,000 a year to the cost of the contract for us, approximately.
Sure.
So
5 days a week, right?
that would be fine, yeah. So it might, in practice, be less than that, but still, would be better to have somebody more local.
And that's a good question. Actually, we do work local. I work in Wanakee, so I'm the lead inspector there. I'm not there full-time currently, but I could come over from Wanakee. Mike works in the Lodi area, so he could come over. So we'd shorten up that distance.
Okay.
You know, we're not out to break the bank.
Okay.
Right.
We're going to be sensible about it. And eventually, if we do find someone, like I said, it's difficult. We look for someone close by. And a lot of our communities ask that same question, can you get somebody real local? Well, we have 200 accounts, it's hard to get everybody
Right.
local, but we do our best at that, so.
Yeah, I don't think we necessarily meant Monona, but Madison area,
Sure.
Although I think more important would be to have somebody competent to do the work, not merely certified as an inspector.
Sure,
but-
I understand perfectly, yeah, absolutely.
Alder Moore?
Just noting from our agenda this evening, because of the added cost that I just want to confirm that we're anticipating that the higher revenue collections will offset the increase in budget.
That is correct, yeah. Because
Okay.
of the permits for the riverfront projects will be pulled this year. So, when we budgeted for it last year, it was kind of a wild guess at that point whether the project would go through. So we budgeted very conservatively. So we're anticipating, a high amount of permit revenue, which will help soften that impact.
Okay.
I just might mention, we do also a fee-based, and I think I sent April that information, so maybe down in the future, you might want to look at that. Then there's absolutely no cost. You never run in the red with us, so that might be something you want to look at, too.
Right, and I think in a more normal year, that
Right.
might make more sense for us, this being really unusual with Riverfront, but.
Sure, absolutely, understand.
Anyone else? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you very much.
You bet. Thank you.
Look forward to working with you.
You bet. We look forward to it.
Okay, final item 2E, consideration of resolution 18-3-2251, approval to contract with Maggie B Communications for municipal communications consulting services put forth by the city administrator, and this is not starred for immediate approval. So April?
So we put out an RFP for some communication needs assessment proposals, and we've received 5 responses. We're recommending contracting with Maggie B for the assessment and the branding work right now. The tourism would be a separate contract. Maggie B was the second lowest bid. We did have some responsiveness concerns with the company that was the low bidder. They're doing some work for us on a different project. And we did adjust our scope somewhat so that we could meet our budget targets of $12,000. So primarily we are going to use some in-house and intern help to do the branding survey, for example. So we just kind of adjusted some of those hours that you see in, I think it's It's supposed to be labeled Exhibit B, but it's right after Exhibit A in the contract. I think that's all I'm hearing is, unless your Jen has something to add.
Does anyone have any questions?
Just so it's clear, so Exhibit B, so Exhibit A is just one page and everything after that is Exhibit B?
It's,
Or,
let's see. So Exhibit B is, it's got kind of the brightness screen stuff here. Can you see? The Exhibit A is actually the RFP.
okay.
And Exhibit B is following, it's a task list, it just wasn't marked. There was a
Is it
different
this?
Exhibit B, yeah.
It's page 66.
At the top there.
Okay.
The wrong one,
The document that she created.
yeah, it was
Okay.
originally, yep, it was originally
Got it.
attached, and so we don't have the fancy Exhibit B marked on it yet, so.
Okay, thank you.
And I think one other thing on page 64, correct, Phase 2 expected deliverables related to tourism, that is not part of this project.
That is correct, that would be a separate project.
So Phase 1 and 3 are part of this project.
Exactly.
Okay. Anyone else have any questions? Okay, thank you. That takes care of our regular business for
Actually, I
tonight.
did, I guess, one other on that,
Alderwood?
just about what's the time frame once this is approved for completion of the project?
I can't remember, do you remember, Nancy?
I don't remember.
Yeah, I don't either.
Okay.
She had laid out a pretty early start, and so I think she's able to work us in and start rather soon.
Yeah.
So I can't imagine this would take long to get up and running, and provided the hours, I think we could probably wrap this up within a
Before
couple.
fall, do you think?
I would even think sooner than that.
Yeah.
Maybe we could have a better idea for the next meeting.
Yeah, that's something that we would work out with the, because, you know, they, some of their proposals laid out a process, but it was a little more aggressive than our council's schedule would allow for, so. So we have to adjust it all.
Okay, anyone else have any questions about this? All right, I move on to item H, reports of committees, commissions, boards, mayors, city administrators, city attorney, and department managers. Alder Moore,
Nothing to report.
Alder Wood.
Just the License Review Committee did not take any action on the two requests for Class B liquor licenses at the meeting last Tuesday, but we lacked a quorum on that issue because one of the members had a conflict. So that will be taken up again at the April meeting.
Alder Spate.
I'll just mention that Transit met last week, and we continue to see a rapid increase in ridership in our express service to downtown. It's great news, and we continue to be happy with that service. And our bus provider, we're hoping it's going to be around for a while. So there was some concern.
Alder Holmquist.
No report.
Alder Coor.
The Community Media Committee meeting has been moved to Thursday. From it's normally scheduled earlier in the month. And I also wanted to point out that Monona Community Media won Best in Show in the short form documentary category in the Wisconsin Community Media Media Festival for 2018.
Cool.
So.
I did have one other.
Alder Wood.
Meant to mention that the Ad hoc Pedestrian and Bicycle Committee be meeting this Wednesday at 6:30 at City Hall.
Okay. And Alder Coor, were you done?
Yes.
Okay. City Clerk Andrews.
Absentee voting is available at City Hall between the hours of 8 and 5, Monday through Friday through March 30th.
And City Administrator Little.
The Clean Lakes Alliance breakfast, I believe, is May 2nd. Sent you a note, and please let our intern Jeffrey know if you would like to attend that breakfast. It's always a very nice event.
Okay, I just had a couple of things. We have scheduled the City Appreciation Celebration for Thursday, April 26th. If you could put it on your calendar, I always think it's nice to have alders there in addition to staff who work with these committees. It's where we celebrate all of our city volunteers. So it's usually a nice evening. There'll be some special awards at it. Committee reappointment follow-up. We still have several committees that we're waiting, that Leah's waiting to hear, and I are waiting to hear of people whose appointments are up or being reappointed. And some of these may be in process, I'm not sure, but I just checked with her today. We still have not heard from Community Media, Facilities, Transit, Plan Commission, Public Safety, Public Works, the Senior Commission, and Sustainability. So please let us know as soon as possible about if people are being reappointed or not, and if they're not, we need to talk about people to take their place. We want to take care of all this at our reorganization meeting on April 17th, so the sooner the better you let us know. We'd really appreciate it. Just this morning, we scheduled the Riverfront official groundbreaking for May 1st at 11. So we'll have more information coming out about that. You're all welcome to attend. I think the only other thing, one thing I wondered about, if we want to think about having, hate to even bring this up, but the way the world is today, some active shooter training here for the council, I think might not be a bad idea if we maybe come early one night, or Officer Ryder does a good job with that, and frankly, sitting here and seeing us with these doors here, I think it might be a good idea for, if anybody's interested, to have him come and do his presentation. Alderman Holmquist?
I would, one consideration could be that we could add it to our public safety agenda meeting to discuss how it would fit within our emergency preparedness and tabletop exercises as well as training. So that way it's part of the bigger scope and plan about how we train as a city,
I think that'd be a
rather
good
than
idea.
one-offs maybe.
Do you think instead of doing something in this room, or in addition?
I wonder if that group could take it up as a discussion, have a recommendation about how training around various types of scenarios, including active shooter elements within all of our city facilities, including city council, and our responsibility.
Okay, well, that certainly seems like something you should discuss, but I don't think it would hurt for us to have Jim come in and give us some ideas about what to do, too, in the meantime. But I agree that that's certainly seems appropriate. I think that's everything I had. We have one appointment on the agenda, Connie Miley to the, I should also mention, the Long Range Facilities Committee is going to meet for the first time this Thursday. So we have one more appointee to that committee, which is Connie Miley, and that is effective immediately. Is there a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
Second.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.